Hello students, we have already done the theory of deconstruction. There is another theory that is prescribed in your syllabus, which is called the reader response theory. And one of the essay that is there in your course is written by Stanley Fish, and the name of the essay is There a Text in This Class? You have already understood what deconstruction is, the theory that was propounded by Jacques Derrida. And this essay that we are going to do today is very closely linked to the theory of deconstruction. It comes under the broad category of criticism that we call reader response criticism, which encompasses various approaches to literature that explore and seek to explain the diversity of readers' responses towards literary work. The writer or the critic who wrote this essay, that is Stanley Fish, his name stands tall amidst many reader response critics like Norman Holland, Wolfgang Iser, Hans Robert Joss, and predecessors like Roland Barthes and Louis Rosenblatt. Now, Stanley Fish is one of America's most stimulating critics and literary theorist, and offers a stunning proposal for a new way of thinking about the way we read. Although Fish does not quote Roland Barthes' The Death of the Author, where Roland Barthes argued that it is the reader and not the writer who has authority over the interpretation of the text, Fish was very much influenced by him. Other influences over Fish are the reader response criticism and the deconstructionalist philosophy of Jacques Derrida. Stanley Fish, in the essay, argues on the premise that the text is not a stable thing with a determinate meaning. He begins the essay by narrating an anecdote where a fresher enters the class and questions the professor by asking, "Is there a text in this class?" To which the professor replies, "Yes, it is the Norton Anthology of Literature." The student, hearing to the reply, clarifies further, "No, no, I mean, in this class, do we believe in poems or things, or is it just us?" In the light of this argument, we can analyze the question, "Is there a text in this class?" Fish develops the thought further and says that there can be two meanings to this question. First meaning could be that whether or not there is a prescribed textbook for the class. The second meaning could be that what does the professor think about the status of the text? That is, does he really think that there should be a prescribed textbook for the class or not? Fish further clarifies that both these meanings are derived from the normal use of language. Also, the professor and the student have one common element in them, between them. That is, they are placed under the same situation and context, and therefore they interpret the meaning accordingly. Fish further adds another meaning to this statement, and he says that there can be a third meaning also to this question, and that is, someone might have forgotten the text in the class, and next morning he or she may come to ask for it. Many critics they criticize this concept and said that in this manner we may go on and interpreting meanings, and as a result we may have an endless succession of meanings. For this, Fish gives a counter argument and states that this is not possible, as one person may come to a meaning when placed in a particular context, and another person may understand another meaning when placed in another context. Therefore, he claimed that interpretations are purely situational and contextual to a certain extent. If we want to put it in other words, we can say that signifiers, and I'm quoting, emerge only in situations, and within those situations the normative meaning of an utterance will always be obvious, quotes close. This means that meaning, although determined, is relative to the situation in which the utterance appears. This can lead us to conclude that understanding requires situational competence. Words themselves do not determine the meaning, but rather the context or the discourse in which they take part. Fish gives us another example of an expression given by the critic Hirsch. And the statement that Hirsch gives us is, the air is crisp. What Hirsch means by this statement is that any person who hears this particular statement will always come up with a fixed meaning. And what is this meaning? That most of the people will understand this utterance as a rough meteorological description predicting a certain quality of the local atmosphere. Fish has a different opinion to this statement, that is, the air is crisp, and he says that when he hears this utterance, he is taken back to his childhood days which he spent at Vermont. Further, he also adds that if the same utterance is placed in another context, for example, if the utterance is made part of a sentence, the meaning will change. Now let us see how this happens. Now, if this particular statement, that is, the air is crisp, is placed in the middle of a discussion on music, and if someone says, when the piece is played correctly, the air is crisp, this would immediately be heard as a comment on the performance of an instrument. Fish argues against Hirsch's view that there can be a statement which may be free of context and may have a normative meaning. According to Fish, it is impossible to think of a sentence or an utterance which is independent of context. He further adds that if there is no context given, interpreters may imagine a context which may be linked to the utterance. Therefore, we may say that no speaker or listener is bound to understand the meaning of words in a normative linguistic system, and at the same time, no one is free to grant any meaning to any utterance. This implies that any act of writing or speaking is completely free of the writer's and the speaker's intentions. Once the writer has written something, he loses authority over the piece. In the same manner, once the speaker speaks something, it is free from his or her personal intentions. We may say that texts are not writerly, but they are readerly. It is the readers of the text who give meaning to it. The readers of the text come up with their own understandings and own interpretations which are completely independent of the intentions of the writer or the author. Therefore, we can say that 100 readers may have 100 interpretation of one piece of writing. Stanley Fish is of the opinion that a statement may not have a determinate meaning, but the meaning is either perfectly clear or is capable to be clarified in the course of time. In other words, no meaning is final. One meaning can be challenged and another meaning can be given to the same utterance. Fish, further in the essay, he quotes the critic M.H. Abrams, his assumption that there is always a dead space between the words or an utterance and the determination of its meaning. Fish argues against this statement and states that meanings come already calculated, not because of certain norms embedded in language, but because language is always perceived within a specific social and cultural norm. He is of the opinion that people who read texts and try to understand its meanings are not laymen. They are educated and they are aware of what is happening around them. Fish says that these readers belong to a particular community, which he calls the interpretive community. These competent readers form part of interpretive communities consisting of members who share interpretive strategies or set of community assumptions of reading a text so as to give meaning to it. Hence, the validity of a text depends upon the assumptions, norms, and strategies that the readers may share with the members of a particular interpretive community. Stanley Fish also suggests that there are no fixed meaning in a particular linguistic system. Rather, interpretations of a literary text is characterized by practices, beliefs, and assumptions of a community or an institution. Stanley Fish further in the essay states that people who participate in this process of communication and giving meanings, they do so very confidently. Therefore, such people are not relativists. Relativism, according to Fish, is a position we can entertain, but it is not a position we can occupy. Beliefs of people keep changing. When beliefs change, the norms and values to which one may have affirmation to also change, and later on they become opinions. One may start critically and analytically observing them. Old norms are replaced by a new set of norms. Therefore, there will never be a moment when an individual's consciousness is free from all kinds of thoughts. Fish is of the opinion that when consciousness becomes free of all kinds of thoughts, we are similar to being dead. Stanley Fish also states that the beliefs and thoughts of an individual are not always his or her own. The thoughts do not necessarily originate in the individual. They may have been available prior to him also. An individual's thoughts have no public value if he is trapped in his own intelligibility. So, a shared understanding in such a case will become impossible. Therefore, beliefs are not individual specific, but they are communal and conventional. People are not solipsists. That is, they do not believe that the self is all that exists or can be known. We all function as parts of interpretive communities, which pushes back the fear of relativism and solipsism. To conclude, we may say that reader response criticism is not a method but an attitude towards reading. It claims that the meaning of any literary text is not just what the author intends to put into it. Rather, it is a transaction that occurs between the author and the reader, and the individual reader constructs meaning as he or she interacts with the text. Thank you.